Tēnā koutou, te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Tēnā koutou nā manuhiri. No mai, hire mai ki tēnei whare karakia a te atoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome. Welcome to this space made sacred over the last 116 years by Auckland Unitarians. If you're new to us, you will have questions as to what's going to happen next. Don't worry. Even those who have worshiped here for years ask the same questions. The only difference is they will be more familiar with the songs. Gretchen Haley has captured these feelings in her words of welcome. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? In these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? We grasp at signs and markers, articles of news and analysis, Facebook memes and forwarded emails, as if the new zodiac capable of forecasting all that life may yet bring our way, as if we could prepare, as if life had ever made any promises of making sense or turning out the way we thought, as if we are not also actors in this still unfolding story. For this hour we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from needing to know, the yearning to have it all already figured out, and also the burden of believing we either have all the control or none. Here in our song and in our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root. That is courage, forged in the fire of our coming together, and felt in the spirit that comes alive in this act of faith, that we believe still a new world is possible, that we are creating it already here and now. So come, let us worship together. My opening words are a reflection entitled It Matters by Robert Walsh. I knew a man who had printed on his stationery this proverb: nothing is settled, everything matters. It established a certain ambiance for reading his letters, as if to say, what you're about to read is to be taken seriously, but is not final. I remember him and his proverbs sometimes, especially when it seems impossible to change the world or myself in any significant way. Times like the beginnings of New Year's. Sorry, Jim, I say, it's not true that nothing is settled. In the past year, choices have been made. Losses have been suffered. There has been growth and decay. There have been commitments and betrayals. None of that could be undone. A year ago, no one knew whether during this year one person would become pregnant, another would get cancer, another would take a new job, another would have an accident. But now it is settled. One day this year I was present just when someone needed me. Another day I was busy doing something else when I was needed. One day I said something to a friend that injured our relationship. Another day I said something that enabled a person to see life in a new way. The best and the worst of those days is now written. All my tears of joy or sorrow cannot erase it. If I stay with my meditation long enough, the reply comes, Robbie, says Jim, you have misunderstood the proverb. It is true that you cannot escape the consequences of your actions or the chances of the world. But what is not settled is how the story turns out. What is not settled is what the meaning of your life will be. The meaning of a life is not contained within one act or one day or 1 year. As long as you're alive, the story of your life is still being told. And the meaning is still open. As long as there is life in the world, the story of the world is still being told. What is done, but nothing is settled. And if nothing is settled, then everything matters. Every choice, every act in the new year matters. Every word, every deed is making the meaning of your life and telling the story of the world. Everything matters in the year coming. And more importantly, everything matters today. This light we kindle is set in the lamp of our history. We inherit this free faith from the brave and gentle, fierce and outspoken, hearts and minds that have come before us. Let us be worthy inheritors of this faith, and through our good works pass it boldly to a new generation. May the sins of the Father be visited upon his children. This was the inscription in a book sent as a gift by my mother to my firstborn. The book was Dumbo. Confused by her sentiment, I called my mother to thank her and ask what she meant. She explained that when I was very young, I insisted she read this story to me nearly every night. Sending this gift was her way of taking revenge, although she probably thought of it as balancing the scales of justice. I have wondered ever since how much Walt Disney's story of a young elephant ridiculed and bullied for his oversized ears shaped who I would become. Or was I simply drawn to him out of primal self-recognition? What was it about the story that so captured me? Was it the love of his mother who sought to protect him? Perhaps it was a nascent sense of outrage at the cruelty he endured by others. Could it have been Timothy the mouse who encouraged him not to believe his critics, but believe in himself? Was it his eventually soaring over his tormentors when he learned his ears allowed him to fly? I hope it wasn't because I identified with his name. I was only 2 or 3 after all. I really can't say at this point. What I do know is that being read to nightly gave me a deep love for anything that began once upon a time. I was not choosy. Growing up, I read voraciously. I like to read stories about people, places, historical events and the future, the gods and God, heroes, dragons and angels, mysteries and adventures. Nowadays, I still like to read such stories, but they are on my iPad as my bookshelves are full. But even better, I still like to be read to. I love listening to audiobooks. I used to have to listen to them on cassette tapes, which was kind of a challenge. Now they're on my phone. I can wake up and go to sleep listening to them. I can listen in the car or while doing the laundry in America or the washing in New Zealand, or preparing dinner. In a quick count since Christmas, I've listened to 31 books, most of them 20 to 35 hours long. Stories, of course, don't just exist in books or in audio format. Movies tell stories. My firstborn was not drawn to Dumbo, but to the movie The Wizard of Oz. She played the VHS tape over and over again until her mother and I went mad. Apparently, it is the most watched film in history, and I blame her for its achievement. Her younger sister was equally enamored by the sound of music, making me long for the days of listening to the Munchkins sing Ding Dong, the Wicked Witch is Dead, instead of Liesl singing I am 16, going on 17. I'm sure my mother was over the rainbow in delight. Stories are everywhere. Our prehistoric ancestors told them in paintings on cave walls. Newspapers and the nightly news love sharing human interest stories. Faith communities build worship around stories of Abraham, Moses, David, Jesus, Muhammad, Siddhartha, Vishnu, Confucius, and many others. The growing interest in genealogy is ultimately about collecting family stories, not just proving you're related to someone famous. Ballads and epic poems are popular for capturing stories that enchant us. Shakespeare's continued popularity is certainly based on the universality of his stories. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man at his time plays many parts. I've been reflecting on why we are so attached to stories. My thought is that we are repositories of stories that shape who we are, give meaning and direction, and connect us to one another. We are also instruments of stories. Our lives are a pen put to paper. We ourselves are stories. We write them, but not all stories are equal. Rumors and gossip are destructive stories. I gather our Prime Minister's partner has had to endure them lately. While not true, these stories have been detrimental to her work and his sense of well-being. If you've ever had to endure slanderous stories, helpless to counter them effectively, you know stories have power. But stories told to smear us are not nearly as harmful as some stories we tell ourselves. During the Time for All Ages, you heard the story of the beautiful tiger. It is a cautionary and hopeful tale of what happens when we surrender our power to stories like these. The strong and beautiful tiger is captured by a mean man and placed in a cage. Over and over, the tiger hears that she is weak and ugly. Even though the tiger spies her own reflection in the water and recognizes her beauty. And even though she moves around the cage and feels the power of her own body, the tiger allows herself to believe the man. That mean man is stories we tell ourselves of our insecurities and limitations and fears. It isn't until a lion arrives to befriend and challenge the tiger's narrative that the tiger can unlock a self-limiting story. As it turns out, the cage isn't even locked. The cage is of the tiger's own making. The bars are the story that's been repeated so often that it became her truth. What do these stories sound like? Do any of these reside in you? I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. Nothing ever works out for me. No one will help me. I'm always disappointing people. People are always disappointing me. I'm too loud, too quiet, too short, too tall, too old, too young. I'm unlovable. I'm not a leader. No one wants to hear what I have to say. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. I don't have anything to offer. If any of these are stories you tell yourself, have you tried to push open the unlocked door? You, your family and friends, this community need you to come out of your cage. You can't honor the inherent worth and dignity of others if you don't honor your own. Only then can you write new stories, stories of hope, empowerment, and liberation the world longs to hear over and over again. Individuals are not the only repositories of stories. So are communities. Certainly this building houses countless stories. Some have been self-limiting, like we're too small, too poor, there's only so much so few can do, and so on. But there are many more stories that this community has written that inspire and give hope and need to be remembered and retold. Wayne Facer's recently published book about the splendid vision of our first minister, William Jelly, is one such story. But there are countless more than that. When taken as a whole, they tell how this small congregation has been a bastion of progressive religion, from providing the first public library in Auckland, to Yoss or David Fougere blocking American naval vessels from entering the harbor in their canoe, to being the venue for New Zealand's first same-sex marriage, to providing sanctuary to Indian students threatened with deportation. But there are still new chapters to write that tell the story of who we are now and who we are striving to be. I see us looking into the water and seeing our reflection as a beautiful, powerful tiger, as people who are generous, loving, grateful, and joyful. I see us striving to be a prophetic church, a church that speaks and seeks justice, kindness, and compassion. A church that will not be controlled by self-limiting stories of powerlessness. A church that will not be silenced. A church that grapples with the issues of our time and builds the beloved community. A church that ventures boldly into the public square to demand justice and fairness and to challenge the stories that are imprisoning and limiting all of us. You know the stories I mean. Stories like these. People who get arrested or spend time in prison must have done something wrong. Everyone has an equal opportunity in this country, and if you work hard, you'll get ahead. Marriage is between a man and a woman. My religion makes it acceptable for me to deny your rights in the public square. Some people's lives matter more than others. Immigrants and refugees are a threat to our culture. Jobs and profits are more important than the environment. A woman's work is not as valuable as a man's. Domestic violence, racism, child poverty are someone else's problem. We need to be writing new narratives to change these stories currently caging ourselves and our neighbors. Writing a good story can be difficult. A good story has conflict, but ultimately resolves. A story is messy and full of confusion, but there is meaning and completeness in it. A story is about people and places, not ideas and concepts. Stories are concrete, absolute, and certain, yet they are mysterious. Stories have natural momentum to them, fueling our passion to find out more from the teller. Stories are laden with intrigue, with suspense and tension. Stories are provocative. Fortunately, we have our principles and our Unitarian history to guide us in writing a good tale. They have been opening cage doors for 5 centuries now. They are our lion, and they tell us how beautiful and powerful we are and teach us how to roar. Amen. In the silence of our meditation, consider what story you would like to write next with your life if you were to free yourself from the cage. My closing words are by Dory Summers. We, all of us, build houses for our dreams. The masonry and lumber, glass and tiles, a solid form wherein we see our hopes, a shelter and protection for our growth. This house shall be a dwelling place for courage, for integrity, for love, engendered, nourished by a family that speaks of we and means all humankind. These walls shall represent the privacy and dignity of individuals. The open doors, a welcome to all people, all ages and all generations. The windows shall keep light of inquiry illuminating from outside and within. May all words spoken here be born of love and energy rekindle in the hearts of those who dreamed this house, who plied the tools and paid the price to actualize the dream. May dreaming never cease for those within, who know the world to be a troubled place, but dare to struggle with imperfectness towards that brighter hope, that better day. Let memories add warmth, a heritage, a quilted patchwork stitched with history, of kindliness, of daring for the good, of funny moments, jokes and smiles and tears. This is a precious place as every home that shelters those who love and strive and share. Its blessings is in lives that meet within, in living, learning, caring, sheltered here.